Okay, so metal.
Metal.
The show's about metal.
What is metal? We're going to spread the hidden value in music.
We're going to proselytize. We're going to get the word out there.
We are.
That's important.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Great Metal Podcast, episode 24. I'm the Metal Evangelist Luke, and I'm here with the one and only Shredmaster Scott and the OG, Just Pete. And today we're going to get into some trouble. We're going to get into some hot water. We are going to be roasting some of the worst pieces of music created by the best bands. Now, one band that has never put out any shit is Death Metal Walrus. I love the blubbering. Love it. That is just the most incredible thing ever.
Whistle seals the deal. And he knows he's like the most talented walrus. You can tell. Like the look in his eye, he's like, no one else can do this whistle shit.
Oh, yeah. That is some good stuff there.
Highly talented. If I was a death metal band, right, you want that guy as your lead singer, like for sure.
Yeah, he is firing on all cylinders. Death Metal Walrus. Yeah,
Flubber.
Yeah. So, like I said, we're gonna get in trouble today. We don't want to, but this is actually, I mean, we get asked about this all the time. Like, oh, you know, what songs suck, you know, from this band, or, you know, shit all over these guys. We've even had bands reach out to us and be like, hey, can we come on the show so you can make fun of our music?
Yeah, that was a surprise.
Yeah, and it's like, well, we don't want to make fun of your music. You know, ideally your music's really good, right? So anyway, I don't like listening to bad music. But since you guys really, really wanted to talk about it and wanted us to give our opinions, all right, let's do this thing. Let's talk about some.
We're gonna make a sacrifice for the fans here. We're gonna take this sonic ice pick to the ears because it's what the people want.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely.
and you know, in some cases, some of the bands we're going to be talking about today, I don't know. It comes back to, I personally think that these particular songs that I'm at least on my list are objectively not as good as some of the other stuff that these bands are doing. You might like them. That's where the taste element comes in. You know, if you like it, you like it. But, you know, sometimes we like stuff that isn't very good.
We're not going to shit on you. We're just going to shit on the band's songs.
Yeah, that's right. Well, and I mean, to be fair, a lot of these songs, I mean, the bands themselves have them listed as some of their big regrets. So
you don't always hit it.
Yeah. One of them really surprised me. It might be the first one we look at, actually. I was like, I can't even recognize this band.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll get into that. But first, we've got some news items that are super exciting and then also like really sad, but it very close to our heart because we've been very near this situation.
Definitely hot. These are hot.
These are hot news items.
Hot news items. So item number one, and first of all, I just got to clarify, I'm like sitting, leaning forward. I had surgery on my ass, and so it's very, very difficult to sit down. I'm taking one for the team to record this podcast for our viewers and listeners, but I can like stand up and I can lay down. Sitting down is very painful. So anyway, I'm like leaning forward. It looks ridiculous.
That's okay.
Metal's worth it.
Yeah,
that's right, man. How many metal musicians are out there on stage playing with a hurt ass? A lot.
Oh,
probably.
Right? They take one for the team. That's metal AF, man.
Yep. Or, you know, hurt necks and stuff. Like everybody screws himself up doing head banging.
Yeah.
Like deadlifts or something.
Now, sometimes they hit that stuff up and they're not, it's offstage things, right? I think we're going to talk about that, huh?
Sometimes it's offstage stuff.
Let's hit this news item.
So you guys are probably familiar with the band As I Lay Dying. Good band. They have some really, really good stuff. So the lead singer, the front man there, he was trying to have a bonfire, which I mean, I think a lot of people like having bonfires. And
metal.
it's metal. Yeah. And so he was, he's going like new school, trying to pour some gasoline on his bonfire to get it going. And apparently the cap fell off while he was lighting it. And the thing just erupted in flames. It ended up with like 25% of his body burned. He's got a great picture on his Instagram page of him like almost in like full body cast in his hospital bed, giving the thumbs up.
Yeah, he's playing the socials. Playing the socials. Like you gotta share what you got. You burn half your body. That's great.
Instagram.
Yeah, we back in the day we used to have bonfires at our place, and we would put like a door or a piece of plywood on top of the bonfire, and then we jump on it. There's like flames flying out of both sides of it. We called it fire surfing.
That was good times.
Those were good times.
I'll tell you who knows how to play with fire safely and destroy pop music, and that's the Shred. Let's take a look. Man, look at that fire burn. What is he burning down? Oh, he's burning the pop music.
Holy Thor fire from Valhalla.
The
Norse gods to rain it down upon WAP.
Now, Shred, did you use gasoline? Did you use gasoline there?
Oh, there's some gas involved. Big time. I'm shocked we haven't exploded ourselves with gas, burnt ourselves. It's unbelievable.
It is surprising. Yeah. We've been in a situation where it could have happened many, many times. But
so As I Lay Dying burned himself. We had a comment here from the Dave Mustaine has broken vertebrae. I don't know if that's a recent development or a prior.
That's a recent thing. That's just from headbanging injuries.
Yeah,
he has had cancer recently, though.
Yeah.
So that's
though.
That's a different type of fail than we're going to be getting into here.
Yeah.
But how about a good news item to start us out before we get into all the fails?
Yeah, I don't know how long Tim's going to have to be in the hospital, but the good news is he is going to be able to listen to some badass music because Liquid Tension Experiment just announced that they are releasing a new album, Liquid Tension Experiment 3. Check out the teaser.
That's a good teaser.
Oh man,
that gets you excited.
Cannot wait. They said it's dropping in spring of 2021.
That is blistering prog, right? That's what I want to hear from those boys, right? Like that's it right there.
Yes. Yep. So I mean, going all the way back. So they released their first album. And for people that don't know, Liquid Tension Experiment was a side project for John Petrucci and Mike Portnoy, who were both in Dream Theater, and they pulled in Tony Levin, who was with what band? He was with like King Crimson. Genesis. And then also pulled in Jordan Rudess, which obviously at the time he was not with Dream Theater. So 97 they released their first album, and it was just a side project where they wanted to go it's all instrumental tracks. And they just basically
like showing what they can do, right? It's just like balls to the wall, no holds barred. You just go for it. Like, they're not. It's instrumental, so you don't have to, worry about song structure and supporting the vocalist.
Yeah. No, awesome. It is so good. If you guys don't have Liquid Tension Experiment album 1 and 2, you really need to get them. 2 came out in 99. So this is their first. This will be like 22 years after their last album getting together.
On the first one, what was it called, Luke? Like 3-minute warning, but it's actually like 30 minutes, and it was just all improvised. They just like hit record and went, right?
Yep. So it's like, I think it comes out to be like 26 or 28 minutes long or something. But literally they were like, okay, no, we're not going to plan this. We're not going to discuss it. We're going to start. And then as one of us get grooving on, something, a riff or whatever, the others will follow and we'll just kind of go for like 25 plus minutes.
It makes me want to go back and listen to that because that's a really intriguing way to approach things. It's like jazz, but
Oh, and it definitely gets into some like jazzy type stuff. It's as a piece of art, it's sloppy, right? I mean, there's a lot of like stuff where you can tell like they don't know exactly where the other person's going. I would also say, what their chemistry though, and their mastery of their instrumentation is so good that the fact that they could do what they did do is mind-blowing, because that kind of stuff is unbelievably hard to do.
I think a lot of us would love to be behind the scenes, like what's happening backstage with these guys and they're just noodling around. That's kind of what you got, right? So
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean it's really interesting if you are a musician, because then you can track along a little bit more and just, you're along for the ride. You don't know what's going to happen. It's dangerous. There's imperfections. This isn't polished. There's not like a bunch of auto-tune and bullshit going on,
Right. No.
Well, there's something that's going to work and has worked. I think we should get on to these misfires. What hasn't worked?
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. So spring 2021, Liquid Tension Experiment 3, that is super exciting. So yeah, anyway, so setting this one up here, like I said, we get asked a lot about, what do you think about these guys? What do you think about this song? Whatever. And all the time they're, the negative emotions tend to be, we're drawn to those more than the positive emotions, as Shred is want to tell us. So, anyway, so we decided to do this topic, and, we've got another thing that made this timely was I just read an article like within the last week or two of Angus Young from AC/DC, and they asked him, they're like, what's your biggest regret? And he said, well, we wrote a song. I don't even know what album this was on. I was not familiar with this song at all.
It's been one of the first ones because it had Bon Scott.
Yeah, it was Bon Scott.
Oh yeah.
And so we've actually got a clip of it. So the name of the song is called Love Song. And Angus Young said that this was their for him, this was their biggest regret.
This is horrible.
Yeah, it started out and sounded a little AC/DC. And then it didn't sound at all like AC/DC.
It was like Thunderstruck without a groove.
Yes, it was just that 2 little note Thunderstruck.
Yeah, it's just there's nothing in the pocket there. And then they come in with this tone, like that's not Bon Scott's tone. That's not Highway to Hell. That's not I don't care, his FO meters through the charts on this.
Well, it's good to be able to admit when you go wrong and course correct.
Well, it is it's funny because I started, when putting this together, I went back and started listening to some of the albums from bands that I haven't listened to in a long time. And there are some bands, it is rare, but there are some bands where it's actually difficult to find a miss, Dream Theater is one of them. I can listen to, start to finish every Dream Theater album. And while, some songs are obviously stronger than others, it is hard to find one that, isn't good or well done.
Those kind of bands are rare. Typically bands have, this period where they're maybe just experimenting, trying to find their sound, and it's a bit painful. And maybe that's what we just heard. Like, that doesn't sound like AC/DC.
Yeah, that was
Right?
wild.
I mean, just the whole tone that Bon Scott is taking, that's like, yeah, it's just not it. It's something else.
No, that's definitely when I listened to it, I was like, okay, yep, I can buy why Angus thought that. And so, and that really started, going down the stretch. There's actually quite a few articles written about this, like, the worst metal songs by the best metal bands, and so, and obviously there are a couple that come out at the top of pretty much everybody's list. And of course, you can't get away from talking about Metallica, obviously, biggest metal band in the world, and their debacle with which is pretty universally accepted as a debacle with Saint Anger. Now, interestingly enough, Saint Anger's not their worst performing album.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's their second or third worst performing album.
One of the Loads that was the worst performing.
Well, so I think it tied Reload with 6. So it did 6 million in sales, and I think Reload also did 6 million.
Okay. Interesting.
But so this album called Lulu, which I've never even heard of, but apparently it was a collaboration with somebody else, somebody named Lou. And so,
what year was this released?
Oh,
is it Metallica album?
Lulu. It's Metallica. Yeah, it's called Lulu. Let me look it up.
Maybe we should check out the clip.
Oh, it was with Lou Reed.
Oh,
well, see, I don't have a clip from Lulu. And in fact, I ended up getting a clip because this song is silly to me, but it's actually from Reload. It's not from Saint Anger. It's called Carpe Diem Baby. And I mean, just like the whole thing is just so silly and ridiculous. So anyway, let's check it out real quick.
Well, you told me you weren't going to play that.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Don't worry about it.
I can load it up quick, but give me a second.
So Lulu, so it's Lou Reed and Metallica collaborated.
Lou Reed was the Velvet Revolver guy. Who was that? Or am I thinking?
Here's the Carpe Diem clip. You want to play that still?
We certainly can.
So this was not their worst selling; it was their second worst selling, or this Reload was their worst.
Correct. Lulu was the worst selling, 2.8 million copies sold.
Oh wow!
And yes, it was Velvet Underground. Lou Reed was Velvet Underground.
That's what I was. Yep.
And they released this in 2011.
Huh. And then they had Carpe Diem Reload, which was about as bad as Saint Anger for sales.
Yeah.
And here's a clip of that.
Live when death fell.
What year was that?
It's like
Reload?
late 90s, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, mid to late 90s.
So it sounds a little bit like they're searching for something, right? Like you do a certain amount of albums or whatever as a band, and then you're like, well, we need to kind of keep moving things forward. We need to evolve. And sometimes it's more like de-evolution.
Yeah. I mean, like Hetfield actually has a great metal voice. He's got that growl. What's that?
I'm surprised to hear you say that.
I think Metallica's overrated. I don't think that they're bad.
Yeah.
I just think people give them way more credit than they deserve. But but he's got a good voice on this album on Reload, and I think on Saint Anger as well. He's like phoning it in on vocals. Like we don't need to play the clip again, but he's just like, I'll die. Yeah.
You think he was lacking some passion? Maybe he was uninspired at this point in his life.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude. Yeah, like stuff goes down, right? Maybe he was having a divorce or something crazy in his personal life. Then your creativity suffers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd think
maybe ass surgery.
Right.
That's always
right. It hurts your performance. There's no question about it. But yeah, I mean, and you'd think that, you show up that day to record. I mean, this is going to be, immortalized on your record. Like, really give it what you can,
Dude,
Yeah, but
there's some great footage of Bob Rock. So he's the guy that produced the Black Album by Metallica in the early 90s. And there's a lot of footage of him just tearing into Kirk Hammett. They're recording his solos, and he's just like, Kirk, you're just not on the level. You got to get better. You got to go home and like sleep or something, because you're just not giving me what I need.
Yeah.
It's so brutal. But it's like you said, I mean, these guys know this is going to be immortalized forever, so you got to give it your best.
Yeah, I think, but it could have been too, like, not wanting to get boxed in, right? So maybe you're trying something else, and that doesn't really work for you, right? So it comes across like crappy.
Yeah. When everybody's watching, you're highly criticized for exploring a new sound.
Well, that is true. And the D actually makes a really good point. He said, wasn't that when Some Kind of Monster came out? That could have been when Hetfield was really, peaking at some kind of an addiction, or whatever. It's been very public
addiction.
Struggles with alcohol issues.
Just relapsed into that not too long ago, right? Maybe last year or something.
Yeah, he went back into rehab last year.
Yeah.
Might still be in it. So I mean, that could be too. I mean, if he's got his demons riding his shoulders hard, you're in there, and it's just you're just not gonna perform up to par. So but yeah, so Metallica, they've had their ups and downs. Honestly, I was trying to think, like, because I own the Black Album, and I think I had And Justice for All back in the day. Honestly, I think those are the only two Metallica albums I own, which is, I don't know, kind of weird.
But you've heard them all.
I mean, I've heard a lot of stuff off of a lot of the albums. I'm sure I haven't heard all their stuff.
Yeah, they've got a pretty big discography. So who's next on this brutal list?
Yeah, well, so the one they're like, big name band before I start getting into some of mine is my goodness, like, look up any of these lists, Slayer and their album, or I'm not Slayer, Iron Maiden and their album Virtual 11. So apparently Virtual 11 was their first album after Bruce Dickinson. And so it was this guy named Blaze Bayley. And so everybody was like, oh man, Iron Maiden just totally, I don't have a clip of this one.
Okay.
I ran out of time. But everyone just universally panned Iron Maiden's Virtual 11. Have you ever heard Virtual 11, Shred?
I don't know. I'd have to hear it to see if I've heard it. It doesn't ring a bell just by saying it, but Virtual 11.
Yeah.
Pretty bad, huh?
Well, that's what everybody was saying. Again, I don't listen to Iron Maiden, particularly anything past the 80s. And so it's like, I had no idea.
In 1998, it looks like, huh?
Yeah, it was like their 11th album. And around the same time, Slayer did an album. I think it was called Diabolus and Musica. And everybody hated that album too. They said it was like Slayer's attempt at being new metal.
Diabolus.
And that, I think that's
definitely music.
We've talked about this in previous episodes, when Dream Theater, because they're constantly trying to evolve and do new stuff. And it, like, for instance, the Train of Thought album for me was kind of a trough for Dream Theater. Still incredible stuff, but it's like they just went in a direction where I was like, well, that's not up my alley. I wanted more of this kind of stuff. I wanted more of like Scenes from Memory type stuff. And so but I think that there are times when you go so far that you actually lose a chunk of your fan base. Like, I mean, it was like universally, I think most Metallica fans say Saint Anger is Metallica's worst album.
It's so critical too on that. Like, they get down to like the snare sound. Everybody's like, the snare sound on Saint Anger was just abysmal. And there's whole like threads on the snare sound for Saint Anger. It's like, man, can you imagine being Lars and just taking all that heat.
it's so funny that you said that, because when I was on Reddit, like there was one guy that was just raging. He was like, Lars totally forgot to put his snare drum. And I was just like, well, that's a weird thing to say. And but
tighten the snare, you like do that latch, and if you unlatch it, it gets like just boomy and woofy.
Yeah, it comes off of the actual, drum face, and so you don't hear. So no, people were literally raging against the sound of the snare drum.
There's a lot of things like that. Like on And Justice for All, they turned Jason Newsted's bass all the way down. Lars was like, "Listen," he's like, "turn the bass down until you can't hear it." And then he's like, after you do that, go down another 12 dBs. So there's just like negative bass in that.
Was Kirk playing with a 7-string guitar at that time?
No, they've never done 7 strings. Metallica? No.
So they were just like, we don't need Newsted.
I think it was more like a personal thing. They were just trying to put him through the paces, because he was replacing Cliff Burton, like arguably the greatest metal bassist of all time. And the big shoes to fill. And they're like, dude, you gotta, I don't know. They're just effing with him all the time. Like just putting him through the paces. But I mean, who wants an album with no bass on it? Like that's a weird move, Lars.
That is weird. Well, some black metal bands.
Yeah, they don't have any bass.
Dude, that is like the tinniest, highest pitched metal. I mean, there's no
very least.
No bass. Yeah, or at least you can't hear it.
Yeah.
But
who's next? Hungry for fails. I'm hungry.
Okay. Well, so let's get into some actual examples. So speaking of Dream Theater, I went back through the catalog there and I found what is typical, in my opinion, is their weakest song. It's weak for a couple of reasons. I think one is I really feel like they missed it on tempo. Like it's like they made it just a little bit too slow to where it physically feels like it's dragging. And Labrie is trying to hold his singing back because it's just a little too slow. And
it maybe doesn't have a click track. They might not have recorded to a click, which is fine. They call this rubato in music, where it's a push and pull of the rhythm. You kind of push it forward and you bring it back a little bit.
Yeah, well, so it's the track Vacant off of Train of Thought. And so let's just take a quick listen to it.
Hey you, hey you.
So it seemed like a filler track to me.
It feels like a filler track, yeah. I think it's in 6.
Yep. I like this actually. Oh, that chord right there down to 5. You know it's coming. Boom. I actually like that one. I think it has a really creepy, haunting, cold. It just makes me cold on the inside.
Well, so
eat my own blood.
Well, that's my thought is, to me, it feels like they're trying to redo like Disappear from 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, which is really, I mean, it's the same type of thing. It's this haunting melody. It's in 5. So it gives you that, like that little bit of like being tension. Off. Yeah. That tension. And,
I don't remember that one off the top of my head. I have to hear that to remember how it sounds.
Disappear. Yeah, it's like it's the story. It's 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, so it's all about mental disorders, and it's dealing with grief. The guy's wife died from cancer, I think, or something. And but that one really gets me. I feel like this one is like a redo of that. Only they just didn't quite structure it right. To me, it's too slow. It's too drawn out, and
it's definitely not a typical Dream Theater song. No question about that.
Well, Matthew actually made a good point. He said it leads into the next song as a sort of prologue.
Well, that's true. So it has the same. It has that same. It leads into stream of consciousness.
Yeah, I do like that.
Hear that enigmatic material in there right before, right? Doesn't it have some stream of consciousness?
It actually literally starts with the same thing that
Yeah.
the
Yeah, that line
Yeah.
is what Petrucci plays, in Stream of Consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah, and Vacant starts that way,
Yeah.
and it might end that way too.
I would agree with Shred that I never like hated this song or anything. I kind of like some of the eerie moodiness, but it also always, and maybe because it's like Matthew pointed out, kind of a prologue, it always made me just kind of feel like it was there to get me to the next song.
Yeah.
Well, and also because the whole point of Train of Thought is, they were like, we want to like kind of go a little bit on the more raw, undeveloped side.
Yeah.
And then you have this entire album full of songs like Stream of Consciousness and Honor Thy Father and Endless Sacrifice and As I Am. And then I feel like they put this in there maybe as a way to kind of slow things down, but I don't listen to this album to get slowed down.
Dude, it's like it's like probably their heaviest album, right?
Yeah.
Train of Thought. But then this song is like very much out of place in a sense. I can see your criticism there.
Yeah. So again, I mean, it's certainly not a bad song. I'm not saying, oh, Dream Theater screwed the pooch on this one.
Way worse coming up, by the way. It's about to get insanely foul.
Apparently, yeah. I'm not even 100% sure what Shred's referencing.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah, I haven't seen his list yet.
Clips, right, Pete?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So we should say, I mean, we're talking about legit bands. Later, we're going to get into some non-legit bands. That's like a whole other category.
But by the way, I would love it if Walrus was in a legit band. Like, he's earned it. He's learned how to whistle. He's got all this control over his vocalizations. He really is the world's most talented walrus.
I
mean,
no question.
Who else is even close?
I don't know a single other walrus that can compete with Death Metal Walrus.
I'm glad we can agree on this.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So Dream Theater, Vacant would be, my pick there of like a metal misfire. But feel free to disagree. Let us know if that's your favorite Dream Theater song. I'd be surprised, but it might be.
Not a lot of people are going to say that's their favorite.
Yeah. So another one that's kind of up the same alley as Saint Anger, only I think it's more self-professed. So I'm jumping into Devin Townsend. Now, Devin Townsend is the most eclectic musician that I think I listen to. I mean, everything is so radically different that he does. I mean, you listen to like Ghost, and then you listen to like Key, and then you listen to Epic Loud, and it is so all over the place. Yet he's
a hyper creative person.
Yeah,
hyper creative,
and he like doesn't know how to contain it. So it just comes out in these crazy ways.
Yeah. Now,
I think we were talking about it the other day, right? Where he's like, at shows, he's like, listen, I got to do an album for me. And then the next one, I'm like, hey, what do you guys want to hear?
Yeah.
Right.
Exploring his crazy ideas,
Yeah. And the interesting thing though, is somehow, and it might be because of the way he always plays in, a different tuning. I think it's usually open C or something like that. But he, and maybe it's the modes that he writes in or whatever, but everything he does, no matter how radically different it is, you can almost instantly tell it's Devin Townsend, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, that being the case, again, pretty universally, the album Physicist, which I think was his second, it was just after Biomech Ocean Machine, I think.
Really?
I think so.
Early 2000s, maybe.
This album.
Yeah. Physicist. Well, so it's basically, it might even be identical to the lineup of Strapping Young Lad.
Oh, okay.
And so to me, well, let's take a quick listen to the second song on the album called Victim.
So you don't like that, Luke?
I mean so here's the thing. I don't mind it, except that it's borderline boring. Right?
Yeah.
Is that kind of indicative of the whole song? It just keeps kind of repping
The whole
that
song
vibe.
and the whole album.
Yeah.
Like, so this entire album, it's like him, hitting like one riff, and he's not even, he doesn't even do a lot of
Dynamics, maybe.
Right. So I think after this was probably Infinity, and then Terria. Terria is one of the most musical albums I've ever heard in my life. This is like one of the least musical, and certainly from Devin.
Do you think this was pressured by studio requests a little bit? I know Devin's talked a lot about some of those albums he's put out are like, he really had trouble getting them out. So his Devin Townsend things, and I think Ocean Machine was pretty hard to get anyone to pick it up at first. And meanwhile he was having some success with Strapping Young Lad, right? So I think he had to try to figure out how to bring that in.
There's no question that kind of stuff plays a role, right? And they say, that only 20% of what you create is actually good, and 80% is just shit. And so what the secret is, just make a lot, because then your 20% gets bigger.
Which Devin does. I just masterfully. I mean, he produces so much material, and I think I actually read in an interview with him one time where they asked him, like, how much material do you have that you have never released? And he was just like, volumes.
Dude, Eddie Van Halen has just libraries full. I was watching this interview with him, and he just had just this library, shelves going way up high, and it's just all stuff that ideas recorded that he's never released. Who knows what's in there?
So anyway, Devin, certainly there's nothing wrong with this. It's not shit, but it's just like, this is like Devin at his least creative, So if you're going to get into Devin Townsend, I would not recommend starting with this album unless you're a huge fan of Strapping Young Lad, because this is very Strapping Young Lad-esque. So
it's like his death metal project, right? It's just heavier than his normal stuff.
And it's just, again, it's like there isn't a lot going on. You know what I mean? It's just, he sits there and just riffs on one little idea for an entire song. And so, I don't know. But anyway, okay. Let's move on. Let's hit a couple of more mainstream metal bands again, that are, more maybe newer than
set them up.
So okay. Avenged Sevenfold. Now, these guys are these guys are like right in the middle, where some metal fans are like, these guys are shit. They're not, they're not true metal. And then the other side of that, people are like, oh, they've got some really good metal stuff. So these guys are kind of controversial in the metal community, period. However, none of their songs are more controversial than their song Dear God. And it has nothing to do with the fact that he's praying to a god. Let's take a listen to this piece, and you'll probably see what I'm talking about.
All right, it's too close to country for I had to cut it early. I can't do country.
I listened to this whole song this morning, and my main criticisms are, it's not the right tone for the band, and it's also, from a songwriting structure, it's flat. They don't have any dynamic rise when the chorus comes. It's just that same tone that you just heard in that clip through the whole song. So maybe that's part of what we find, bad or fail, or just a lack of movement. Because there's no distorted guitars anywhere in the track. It never just rises to anything metal.
Now, I mean, you could say that same thing about Vacant, though, with Dream Theater, right? I mean, there's no distortion there. So I understand this idea. Like, he's going for this ballad sound. Like, he's on the road, right? touring
Yeah.
and he wants God to keep his girl at home safe or something. Maybe it's his daughter.
Was a thing, but
Right.
we don't
And
do that anymore.
I kept thinking, oh, this is like Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi. Right? I mean, Bon Jovi's like,
good.
I'm on this, steel horse I ride,
That's kind of
limo.
a similar vibe now that you mention it.
Yeah.
But it's not as well written of a song.
Right.
No, and well, exactly. I mean, Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive has, first of all, has that really cool arpeggiation.
12 string. Yeah.
Oh,
And it's
okay.
12 string.
Really cool, like D minor sequence there. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, and it's more of it. I mean, yes, it has some of that like Western feel to it. I mean, Wanted Dead or Alive, it's kind of a Western themed song, right? It's talking about riding steel horses and shit. So, but I would put Bon Jovi, Wanted Dead or Alive as an example of, that's closer to metal than this is, right? And this is like
It is.
I'm all for using non-traditional instruments in a genre. The slide guitar, though, is really tough. I mean, you got to.
It's more like pedal steel. What it sounds like. That's that thing that you kind of like you play it like this, and
and you slide your.
You got to do it
there.
well, though.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds good. It's just the tone of the song doesn't sound like Avenged Sevenfold, right? It's like, it seems like out of their wheelhouse. I don't know. It's a touchy thing, right?
Right. So you listen, right? But you're listening. Oh, go ahead.
I'll tell you again. The line we talked about, where the line is, and that's like
hold the line.
I think I'm gonna play this clip because this is so what we're talking about misses with bands. Then there's just like total shit like this. This guy's top. Yeah. That's just bad. That's just bad. Objectively bad. It's not like it doesn't fit. It's just objectively bad.
What makes it bad though? Like, what is so awful about that? It's almost got 800,000 views.
Oh, Dear God by Avenged Sevenfold has like 280 million views.
That worst metal band though had a lot of views.
Right.
Yeah. But everybody knows about Avenged Sevenfold. Nobody knows about these guys. And in fact, I couldn't find their name. They don't have it in the description.
It's so bad.
You don't want to be connected to that. But
they probably listed it as like themselves and then started getting negative feedback and like switched to just like drop their name out of the comments, retitled it to worst metal band. They're like, well, let's ride what we got.
Well,
Play that again. I want to hear that again.
Okay, it's pretty bad. Part of it's the sound quality.
Yeah, his voice is just not there.
Yeah, and the general disinterest amongst the bandmates. I think there's a lack of energy in the room. It could be the room they're playing in looks ridiculous.
So something's terribly awry. Something's terribly awry here.
But it's dragging like nobody's business. I feel like it's not like there's no power behind it.
Certainly what stands out to me is the guy's voice is just rough. I mean, he's really trying to push something out.
Dude, I think vocals are easily the most important component in a band. Like,
people are going to make their decision quickly based on the vocals.
That's right. And if you think about all the big bands in the world, they all have a very unique sounding vocalist.
Yeah.
Geddy Lee from Rush, Brian Johnson, Bon Scott from AC/DC, Axl Rose. I mean, these guys, no one else sounds like these guys.
Right.
This guy just sounds like a bad imitation of some crap,
Yeah. So certainly, I mean, when we're talking about, Avenged Sevenfold, again, the song itself is fine. It's a metal misfire on my list because I'm listening to Nightmare and Backcountry, and then all of a sudden, Dear God, I'm like, what?
Yeah. The algorithm screwed
Misfire.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate bands trying to do something different. It's just it's really hard to do something different, but still, keep your identity. Bands like Dream Theater can do it. Devin Townsend can do it. I think Avenged Sevenfold missed it on this one.
If you can do that, it brings real value to the fans too. If you can pull it off,
because you do have to do that to an extent. If you don't evolve throughout the course of your musical career, people are going to become disinterested. But you can't evolve too much to the point where they can't recognize what you're doing.
See, I don't know about that, and because why do people still listen to classic rock? Like this has boggled my mind forever. Like it's not interesting music, and they've been listening to the same songs for 50, 60 years.
Well,
there's nothing innovative about listening to Thunderstruck again for the 7 millionth time.
It delivers a specific quality, right? When you're in that mood, when you're in the classic rock mood, that's what you're looking for. When you go to Wendy's, you're not expecting a gourmet burger, right? Wendy's is what it is, and you appreciate it for what it is. Right?
Which is square. Square. It's a square burger.
Yeah, it is.
You
a square.
Appreciate the square.
No, and I
song by Ghost. Maybe they're really talking about Wendy's burgers. I don't know.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, your point there, Scott, is dead on. I think, again, with a lot of classic rock, when I say it's one of my least favorite genres of music, that's largely because it's so overdone. But it's not necessarily that it's inherently bad.
No, you're looking for something different. You want like a intellectual stimulation, more of an emotional roller coaster. People who listen to classic rock just want to dance at the club, or not necessarily the club, but at the bar. Maybe they just want to have a good time.
I think re-listening to the same song is a whole nother thing, though, because that once you have an emotional connection to the song, you can listen to it over and over again, right? Now, you might not get into the band's new material because it might be boring because it sounds similar, but you've already got the emotional connection to that first album. Right. I want to get to a few comments here because I thought this was good. Kate said, "What kind of love by Avantasia is pretty divergent from their normal stuff." So I think divergent, though, isn't the problem, right? It's how does it work, right? It's got to work within the album. It's got to work in a certain way. And sometimes divergent doesn't work, right? And so that's the hard part. That's where you can easily get a miss. What do you think on this?
See, creativity isn't something we understand like some other things in life, right? Like it's
like
sort of
gravity.
Abstract. We understand gravity, as being like a very concrete thing, but creativity, what is creativity? It's kind of hard to pin down, and so how we respond to what's good is a little bit less clear.
Well, that's right. Particularly when you're talking about taste, which a lot of what we're talking about today is taste. There certainly is the objective qualities that you have to define before you can measure them, right? Like are you actually hitting the note or not, right? I mean,
would Bach approve of your playing of his partita or not?
Right. If am I playing the right notes in a scale? Those are all very objective, measurable things. When you're talking about taste, do I like Dear God? I mean, that very hard to define.
No, Luke. The answer is no. You don't like it.
It's certainly not my favorite song.
We should get into some ultra shit at this point. Pete, do you have that clip where it's like the the medley clip?
I want to do the Comfortably Numb one.
Okay.
Really quick, I was going to say Matthew Corns did say classic rock is a gateway to better stuff, which is true. I think so. Some of the value there is getting people in because it was a forerunner, right?
Well, that's a great point. And because somebody said that same thing about they argued with me about Metallica, right? Because they were like, well, if I'd never listened to Metallica, I wouldn't have discovered whatever. And it's like, okay, well then that's great. I love that Metallica.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, as a gateway, and again, like I'm saying, classic rock, some of it's actually fun. I like listening to it like once or twice a year because it's so overdone.
There's value to it. And then there's these guys trying to bring value to it, but failing.
The solo starts on the 7th fret, and he's up at 12.
It's almost unrecognizable.
As you he's not feeling it. The singer's not feeling it.
Oh, and then this guy real quick. Who
Right at the high note.
Proven!
I love it.
I'm not sure.
It sounds like he's blaming someone else.
I think he's probably like Ukrainian or something.
Yeah, no, I know that, but it kind of sounded like because it almost sounds like he's like yelling at someone about like who did this, like
that's
right in his teeth.
Just getting way up there with his bends. And
Yeah,
as he hit the high point, the low point came.
Yeah.
Oh, that does suck. Yeah. Well, that solo. I mean, for the Comfortably Numb, I think we can objectively say that was bad, right? That was poor.
Like when you're in rehearsal, like I'm assuming it went somewhat similar in rehearsal, right? They probably didn't just nail it in rehearsal. So when you're going through the rehearsal on that, what are you thinking to yourself? Okay, let's go ahead with the show. Everything's in shape. Let's move forward with the show. I mean, if that was the sound in rehearsal, I'd be like, maybe let's postpone the show, cancel the show,
or skip the solo.
Solo would be an option, but
Matthew said it took him a long time to realize it was Pink Floyd. Me too. I was like I was listening for it. I'm like Comfortably Numb solo. And then I was like, boy, okay, there's a couple notes maybe.
Yeah. Although I don't think anybody, I mean, Comfortably Numb is like iconic Pink Floyd.
Right.
Yeah. So I wouldn't consider that a miss. I would consider that performance a miss.
Oh, right. No, that's the performance was the miss.
Yeah.
Okay. I was
Okay.
just talking about that. Like it was so bad. The performance of it was so bad that it was like hard to like even recognize it as the solo.
Yeah.
It's hard to criticize yourself is the thing. You're having fun in the moment. You're like, we just want to play this music. It's going to be fun. But then you're maybe not looking at how you're doing it very objectively,
Oh, dude.
Here.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm a rhythm player. I'm not a lead player. Every solo I've ever tried to play, I feel like I sound like that guy. Every single one.
You don't sound that bad, Luke. Trust me. But we've got more, right?
We do have more.
The next clip is like a band. It's like a medley. See if you can pick out some of the popular metal songs here. They're very popular metal songs. Trust me, even though you may not be able to hear them.
Shred, this is so bad. I'm not gonna be able to play a lot of it. So just
Give me like 10, 15 seconds.
Okay.
What song is this?
I have no idea what this is.
This is The Trooper by Iron Maiden.
It's just dissonant noise.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
How long does that go on? That was only
the whole show, bro. It's a whole thing.
Oh, because you said it was a medley, but it was just 2 songs. Then
Well, Pete.
I can't, dude. It's hard
bad,
on my
eh?
ears, huh?
I haven't seen it, so I didn't know.
Yeah. You give it to us one more time. We need a little bit more of that.
Can you
Make my
fast
ears
forward?
bleed? Make my ears bleed.
I can't make it fast forward. All right, there's also some good dancing going on here.
There is,
Yeah. There's like a mosh pit, but that's like on the stage, max mosh. You gotta unmute yourself.
I definitely did not recognize that until that part.
They don't have a guitarist. That's part of it.
Oh, yeah, that is true. You can probably stop it now.
Okay, the audience is like, oh, what's going on? They're like all sitting there.
I can't
like,
believe there were that many
Captive
people
listeners.
in the audience. Yeah.
Well, they were
Well,
captivated
they're
because they were captive.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
I think that was like a school talent show or something. So you didn't have a choice. You just had to sit
I like that the
Yeah.
mosh pit was like up on the high stage. Like that was the peak.
And then
level
the
of
band is like
Yeah.
down on the floor.
Yeah.
And the mosh pit's up on the stage. Yeah.
Yeah. So odd. Yeah, I would definitely categorize that as a fail. That's
Yeah.
a metal miss.
Death
Yep.
Metal Walrus is not a fail. But
No. That's what I'm
that's-
saying. Death Metal Walrus, he's never put out anything bad.
I was so impressed. I spent a lot of time with Death Metal Walrus over the past week. And it's- I made the music behind that, and I was so impressed at his skills. Like he really, I've never like. How did someone train that walrus like that? That's nuts.
I don't know, man.
We should probably watch him one more time and then wrap up here, huh?
Sure.
We got a couple other clips after it. Yeah.
What is that?
The noises that he makes are unreal.
He is so happy at the end, though. He's just like, yeah, guys.
It's, like it's fish time. Now I get a fish, right? It's like after I whistle, I get double fish.
Oh, that is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
That is great. Well, I don't really know how to top that one. I mean, you know, there are a couple other bands here.
I'm done. That's
Yeah.
it. Wrap the show right there.
Yeah, I mean that's got to be it. We were going to talk about some Nightwish and some Five Finger Death Punch and get into that kind of stuff. Five Finger Death Punch is often referred to as the Nickelback of metal.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think they have quite a few that most people would consider.
Dude, we should just plug LTE3 again.
So that's
Yeah.
the real thing.
That's
Well,
good
that's
stuff.
what I was going to say. Yeah, because we're almost out of time here. So, so the featured band, we already talked about them, but the featured band is Liquid Tension Experiment. These guys, so I mean, like we said, it's all instrumental, and it's all just like an exercise in creative jamming, right?
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
a good way to put it. Yeah.
they get together and they just start jamming, and it's not all like 3-minute warning where let's just improvise for 30 minutes. A lot of it is actually, written material, but it all comes like the first album. I think they locked themselves in a studio for like 2 weeks. So it was
Yeah.
like start to finish. They put out, it was probably roughly 60 minutes of incredible music, instrumental music. There's so much going on in every single one of their songs because you have some of the best musicians in the world all like jamming off of each other and contributing their ideas. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
So, so they have 2 albums out. They did also then, I guess, they released 2 live albums called Liquid Trio Experiment
Oh,
in 2007 and 2009. It was without John Petrucci though.
that's sad.
So it was Mike Portnoy, Tony Levin, and Jordan Rudess, but no Petrucci. And so LTE3, which
No guitar? Come on, bro.
yeah,
Greatest
apparently
instrument ever.
Levin on his Chapman stick there.
that was probably Rudas.
And Rudess,
Yeah.
yeah. They
Pulled it
work.
off.
I actually haven't.
Watching Tony Levin play the Chapman stick is like watching somebody play like an alien play. It's so bizarre, especially when he puts those little things on his fingers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know what those are called, but an incredible player. He's got to be like, he's probably 176 at this point too.
He's
And
pretty close.
it's even more impressive.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, what he's doing in that teaser clip is, I mean, he's like, pseudo keeping up with John Petrucci here. Obviously it's not as complicated as what John's playing, but hitting all those there's no
Chapman stick is not as fast, or the bass in general is not as fast as an instrument as the guitar. So you
Right.
literally can't play it as fast. Yeah.
right. Although John Myung, he
People
plays
go pretty quick.
He can go pretty quick. So, anyway, so featured band today, we're out of time. Liquid Tension Experiment. If you guys haven't checked it out, if you like instrumental metal, check those three out, the
Give
two
it a
albums
listen.
out. And
Look forward to the third.
yeah, thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a blast. And until next time, the world ends with you. So make it metal.
and check out greatmetalpodcast@gmail.com with your thoughts. Sorry, gotta sneak that one in there.
Gotta get it in there.
Make it metal.
Oh.